Now that my other two cars are barely functional, it's of course time to pick up another project, or rather, pick up where I left off on one. So this is my go-kart. This is a 1989 Tiger EXL. These were sold between Arizona and California in the late 80s and early 90s as kids' yard carts. This one has had some frame modification and an engine swap or two, but ultimately it's still a Tiger. So we'll go over a couple of the issues and current situations of this. So about 2 or 3 years ago, I crashed this into a tree and I broke the control arm, I guess, off, and that's welded absolutely beautifully. So that's why it's all ugly. And I don't think that's a crack, I think that's just missing paint. Because when I move this by hand, I can't see any deflection in that. But if I need to cut those off and build them again, I'm okay with that. During that same time, or perhaps, I'm not actually sure, maybe it was a different time, I bent these tie rods and I just kind of straightened them out as best I could. And I want to replace those. Another thing that has been a continual issue, this nut on the bottom that holds the steering arm thing in place keeps falling off. So I needed to find another one, maybe find an eye lock or something. We had these frame braces installed. These are legitimately steel pipe from Home Depot. We just MIG welded those on. This was just to brace the front of the frame because it was flexing a fair bit. This was done before we got it, but this has a big, huge piece of angle iron beautifully welded on. The engine is a Tillotson 212. I built it myself. This was the first engine that I built from the ground up. It has a factory Predator crankshaft. It has a flat top piston, a big cam, and valve springs. Couple issues with this. It runs, but as soon as you let the choke out, it dies. The gas tank is currently not mounted, and I think it leaks oil like crazy, and that's why everything's covered. So first things first, check the oil, see if it starts. So I just filled it with oil. I put some Marvel Mystery Oil in the combustion chamber and spun it over a few times. It feels like it spins fairly smooth. Put some in the gas tank. Just gonna fill up the gas tank a bit. We'll try to start it. Don't need much. I'm gonna put it up on jack stands because in case the clutch is seized, I don't want this to take off. Okay, I believe it's choked now. Fuel's on. Ignition is on. Well, I guess I'm fine. Just leaking like absolute mad from the cover. So I guess I just take the engine off, fix that, throw it back on, and I guess it will be fine, hopefully. Fix the tie rods, and it's probably drivable. I can see the cover moving. That's amazing. Yeah, so everything's just fucking loose or something. Yep, everything's loose. Oh, this is stripped. Yep, that's stripped. That one's not, but it's loose. That one wasn't, but it's loose. Okay. Well, I think I know my next steps. So in a lovely turn of events, what ends up being the problem is that just all of these are just insanely loose. So, except the ones I tightened earlier. And one missing entirely right there. So I need to figure out if I have these bolts in this size, and hopefully I can just throw new ones on and call it a day. So that one was entirely loose. That one was a little tight because I tightened it. A couple of these are stripped out for sure. I don't feel any play in the rod bearing, which is nice. That was an expensive piece that I replaced. Now, it's clear that the oil leak was terrible because I filled that with oil and now it's completely empty. I did not drain it. That dowel pin's doing absolutely nothing. It's incredibly loose. That's funny. Alright, well, for that to dry, let's fix these holes. This is an M8, it seems. M8 by 1.25, it looks like. That's nice, because that's JIS. I have a ton of those. Yep. And I have the exact length too, and in the shiny finish, so I'm going to switch over to that because it looks better. Yeah, I'm going to re-drill this one out for sure. This one looks pretty bad, so I'm going to do that one. Yeah, that one's going to be rethreaded. Maybe I'll just helicoil all of them, honestly. I'm just going to time-lapse through that. So resealed the cover here. I ended up having to put new dowels in it that had these, let's see, hollow dowels, and they're slightly springy. I don't like that. So I got M8 by 14 millimeter dowels and just stuck them in the cover, used some green Loctite, and then stuck it on. So I just have to throw the clutch back on and then throw it back on the cart. Key. Basically, then the clutch little bucket thing. Now there's the basket. Yeah, so there we go. Just like that. Put the bolt in. Let's say 13 mil. Just like that. Now this clutch will actually stay on. Time to throw it back on the cart. All right, so it's been about 19 hours. This takes 24 hours to cure. I think it's fine. I'm just gonna run it. So since this is a flat tappet engine, you do have to get an oil with a lot of like zinc additives and such. And I ended up just going with BR1. Very overkill, but I'd rather have an overkill. It's also cheap and I can get it in a pretty thick variety, so I'm rolling with it. Alright, so these take around half a quart, put about half the bottle in. We'll see how that lands us. Slightly low, so I'll add a bit more. Alright, that's better. I feel pretty good about that. Now at this point I should just add some gas. Start it up and let it run for a while, make sure it clears everything out of the combustion chamber. Then it's time to drive it. Doesn't look like any oil's leaking yet, so that's a plus. Ignition is on. Choke is on. Let's go. Well, I think it works pretty good. Still smoking a little bit. I think it's burning off some stuff and the Marvel mystery oil in the gas tank. But I think it'll be good.